friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to be here again and speak again in English with you, and of course to tell you about some books in English. Today I'm going to tell you about the classical detective story, but I was very shocked when I understood who is the writer. The writer is A.A.Milne, is a writer of the wonderful stories for kids with the Winnie the Pooh and his friends and all and so on. And you know, I loved Winnie the Pooh and I thought that the writer Milne is only the writer for kids. But I was mistaken when I understood that the Red House Mystery, it is written by A.A.Milne, the author of Winnie the Pooh. Also, when I started to read the book, I was very shocked about some moments. The first moment about the writer, I didn't know that he could write the detective story. The second, I was really shocked about the popularity of this book. It's very wonderful and very popular book in the time where was it published. Also, I was very shocked about how many books we had in the past when the book was very popular. The publishing houses, the newspapers, everybody wanted to publish this, and for many years it was very popular to publish for giving a chance to read everybody this wonderful story, detective story. So, what do we talk about the plot? The plot of the story is very simple. We have the rich man who was very bored in his private life and he decided to make a party for his friends, for his close people and for people who he maybe looked only once in his life. And you know, the main character was very surprised when he understood that his brother from Australia came to visit him in this day. So, and how it is bad to say, the brother from Australia was killed. He was killed by somebody, but we don't know who was this because we don't know about anything in this book. Like, we don't have a police here. Like, somebody was killed, but we don't have a police here. How it's going, I don't know. We have the wonderful mystery about the killing. It's like the dead body was in the room which was very closed by the key. And nobody knows where was the key because nobody had this. And you know, I loved the moment in this book, especially about the mystery, like how somebody could come in this room. And it was really interesting when our characters tried to understand how person could come in the room with a closed door, closed by the key, and what about the windows, were windows closed, not, and so on. And also it's very wonderful when they started to thinking about the ceiling, about do we have some mystery entrance in the room by the ceiling or so on. It was really cool and interesting, and this moment was the best moment in the book for me. Also, you know, we have of course character who by mistaken was at the party because he was traveling to one side and he did a mistake. He went out from the train, not his real station. So that's why he was not upset, because he decided to visit his friend who was at this party. Of course, this man from the train decided to be a detective, but he, of course, wasn't be a real detective. And, you know, it was really funny to understood that how it was very funny to be a detective if you are not a real detective, you are not even a policeman, and you decided to solve the mystery story, you decided to investigate the criminal murder, and you know, I was very loved with the main character who decided to be a detective. Also, it's very funny, and I laughed a lot when I read this book because our characters, the man who decided to be a detective and his friend who was at the party, they decided to be like a Sherlock Holmes and a Dr. Watson and to try to solve the problem like them. But they didn't know anything about this. And you know, this book is not like a classical detective story when you have all movements and all actions side by side and you try to understand, okay, if we do this one, we can do this one. If this one, we can do this one. And next. No. Here story was like a surprise every time because these two people, they decided to be detectives and they always loved each other about this. They have a lot of jokes about this. They have a lot of special moments like, do you really believe in this? No, I'm not. If you're not, I will believe. What is going on there? It was very funny. The end of this book was predictable because the detective line is not so mystery detective, like we could have in another detective stories. The author gave us some clues and we decided to solve the problem by ourselves without help of our main characters, like detective characters. And sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm solving this, I do this. And of course you did. And you did this earlier than the main characters who detectives, and you are like pride yourself and okay, I'm a real detective, I can do this. They not. And I was really laughing about this story because when I started to read this, the beginning is like in a real classical detective story. We have a family, we have a place, we have a lot of description of this red house, about the gardener, about the flowers near with this. And you believe in this, yes, it is a classical detective story. Because also like in all classical books, we have a lot of descriptions of nature, of weather, of other things. Like our characters going through the garden, they discussed about everything. They try to give a lot of information to each other about everything, about private life of somebody, about one girl who was an age to which she wanted to marry, and so on, so on, so on. We have a lot of classical descriptions here. So that's why in the beginning you really think that, okay, I'm here and I'm reading the classical detective story. But after maybe pages 30, 35, you started to thinking, okay, something wrong here. It's not a classical detective story because you have a lot of jokes, a lot of funny moments, a lot of moments when our character who want to be detective, how they try to investigate the criminal things, like clumsy people. They don't know anything. They don't try to solve in a correct ways the mystery story. They do this like they have read in the detective stories about Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson and so on. And I wanted to tell you, if you're really fan of classical detective stories, you need to pay attention to this story, not because of detective plot, of course not, because detective plot is very simple here, and the end of this criminal murder, of course, it's very simple, and you decided not to read anymore something like Detectives from Miln. You need to read this book if you like to laugh, if you like to have funny British jokes, if you like sarcasm, if you like when people are kidding to each other and they don't understand about, oh, what did he say? Was it a joke or not? Or he talked to me with the serious face. It's really funny. I want that you read this book because this book is real wonderful, like classical books in the position of classical books, if you know what I'm talking about. It's like if you like classical books, like romantics, some mysteries and so on, the detective story will be really good for you, and you will find a lot of classical things for you, like descriptions, people talking, a lot of discussing about everything, the same description of the nature and the weather, because as for me, I loved classical stories, different classical stories, and for me, in all classical stories, the description the same about the weather, about the nature, and of course about the house, and we must have a river or a small lake near with the house. It's 100%. Also, I wanted to tell you about this book. This book is published in Russia, so it's not English variant. So it's English variant book, yes. So you can buy this and enjoy the story in English, like in a native English speaking writers. But you have here like Russian information about the book, what's happened there, and so on. And it's a problem because the book is in English. And also I would like to tell you that you must read this book if you want to meet with the author, because the writing style of the author is really great. I never thought that Milne could be a good writer of detective stories with a good English language, because here is a lot of slang words, a lot of some strange words which only English people can understand. And you know, you just sitting and thinking, yeah, I'm really reading the English story in English language. It's 100%. So if you wanted to meet with the writer, if you wanted to meet with his style of writing, if you wanted to understand how he wrote his stories, by what language he used, you of course need to buy this and try to read. Of course, I think if you are having pre-intermediate or intermediate level of your English language, you can understand this. It's not very difficult. It's not very hard to understand what is written here. And I think that if you wanted to make your English better, you need to try to read this one. Because I know when a lot of people try to study English language, they try to read a lot of simple books like kids books or maybe some magical things, something like that. But nobody wanted to try detective story. I will give you a chance to meet with Miln, like a detective story writer, with his great English language. I'm sure that you will understand his story in English if you have pre-intermediate, intermediate level, and you will enjoy this, I'm sure. Also, I want to tell you that we have a lot of published of this book, and we have different covers of this, and I'm sure you will like these coverings, and I love other coverings more than I have this, because the design of the covering is not in my style, and when you see this in the shop, you don't understand that this is a mystery detective story. You can understand for the covering, like a romantic story, or maybe story about family, about the house, about the connection with each other, but not this story about the murder, about killing of the person, and about the great secret mystery of how he was killed. The end of the book is really great. So my friends, I wanted to tell you that this book is great. This book is really great book of classical detective story, like plus with a lot of jokes and funny moments with the main characters. And of course, you decided to read something more after reading this book written by Miln. Of course, my guys, I'm very happy to talk with you about this book, because this book was very emotional for me. Like I had in the beginning, like real emotional, like a classical book of reading, and then I will have a lot of big emotions, like, oh my god, what I'm reading here, it's not a classical story, it's a really classical story with this moment, and this moment, and you just in the end you looking at you and you, wow, what is the end of this book? So my guys, I'm really happy that you watch my video about this book, and I'm really happy if you will buy and read this, or maybe not buy, and you can use online websites to read this. And of course, I will wait your comments here, of course, to speak about this book in Russian if you read this, of course in English if you wanted to read this, and I will glad to answer your questions about this book, about the edition, about the Russian edition, yeah, like me, and about other editions which we have in other countries. So my guys, thank you for watching my videos. Bye!